It's Fee Week on ESPN as we continue Jim Valvano's fight against cancer.
We welcome you to ACC Network Basketball presented by Food Lion. Inside the Lawrence Joel Veterans Coliseum in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The Demon Deacons welcome the Wolfpack of North Carolina State alongside Dan Bonner, Will Fleming. Dan, it has been forever for Wake to be back home. 24 days since they played in this building. They get back into ACC play, road weary in a major way.
Well, they're road weary, but they're back at home now. That more than 4,000-mile trip was hard, but now they're back home. They're playing a team in NC State. They've had a lot of success against them here in this Coliseum.
You figure if Wake is going to pull it off today at home, it will have to be Brandon Childress, who's in need of a big-time bounce back.
Well, Brandon Childress is a guy who had a very bad game at Penn State. You see that it can't be much worse than that. Very unusual for him. He has struggled shooting it recently, only 4 for 25 in his last 2 games, but he is exceedingly important. He's got a tough matchup today. Markel Johnson from North Carolina State, one of the top point guards in the Atlantic Coast Conference. You see, he started out very slowly shooting the ball as a freshman. His shooting has been much improved. Started out the year the same way, but he's played well over his last few games, and he's a guy that seems, over some injuries now, he's got it going a little bit.
Kevin Keats reshuffled his lineup into Wisconsin. He got a major benefit. Both of these teams, though, figure to get a big boost when they go to their benches.
Oh, there's no question. Both teams rely on their bench. For North Carolina State, C.J. Bryce has started most of the games, but he came off the bench against Wisconsin, played very well. This is a bench that scores almost 28 points a game, outscores their opponent by 10, but Wake Forest, they'll do you one better than that. They bring Olivier Sarr off the bench, and in his last 7 games, Sarr has produced tremendous numbers coming off the bench, even better in the last 5 games. Wake scores 27 a game. They outscore their opponents by 12, so the bench is going to be a big factor.
And Dan, there are the gory details of the 6-game road trip for Wake Forest. It did not go well on the odometer or in the win column. That looks like a week for you on the road in your car in the ACC. The Deacs are happy to be home.
Well, they are happy to be home, and it's they have played good teams. The game against Penn State, that's a really hard travel when you're traveling by commercial airline, not charter flight, to get from Anaheim, California to State College, Pennsylvania. And so we talked to Danny Manning about that, and he said no excuses, of course, but they didn't play well against Penn State. They're hoping they'll play better today.
There's Danny Manning. It has not gone as everyone expected when he was hired here to be the head man at Wake Forest. Consecutive 11 and 20 seasons, Dan. Here he goes for the 6th time into the gauntlet of ACC play, and all eyes are on that man.
Well, they are, and that's when you take a job as a coach in a place like the ACC, a place like Wake Forest, where they have a good basketball tradition. This is the kind of pressure you have, and he's got a veteran team. This is a good opportunity for him.
Meantime, Kevin Keats feels like a perfect fit. In some ways, last year, a victim of his own success. They were gangbusters when he came on campus. He really likes this group that he's got.
Again, he's also got a veteran team. You know, in his first year, he beat both Duke and North Carolina. I thought they were going to build a statue to him outside the PNC Arena. They didn't get into the NCAA tournament last year. Everybody's talking about that. He really likes his team this year.
He brought a style to the research triangle that fits with Duke and Carolina. They are going to look to move and press and run and fly. And boy, oh boy, have they been able to do that. Wake Forest is announcing their starting lineups as we speak. And look, Dan, it has been a hallmark for Kevin Keats to press, to push the tempo, to go deep into the bench. He's been limited with some injuries. They are not as deep as they've been. And so these 5 that Wake Forest brings out there are going to have to contend with a few fewer faces for NC State.
Well, it has changed NC State a little bit, and it might be at the moment for the better because they've backed off a little bit on their full court pressure. But they still pressure you, and they play you tough in the half court. And when you're playing tough in the half court, you probably give up fewer easy baskets. You don't pick up as many fouls. And so I think this is a different looking NC State team. This is going to be a real challenge for Wake Forest.
That's something we're going to get into because in some ways, NC State has benefited, and you noticed it on the tape watching them in the half court defensively. For Kevin Keats and NC State, it's one of those weird things in this wonderful basketball conference. They just have not fared well inside this building.
Well, you can't explain that, but these are 2 of the old-time rivals in the ACC.
It's amazing when you look at this. Wake Forest has been here for 30 years. They'll celebrate this building. And NC State is the only opponent who's come in here all 30 of those years. State leads the series 155-106. And they do have great numbers overall, but last year was really one of the low points for them on the road at Wake.
Well, keep in mind that last year when they lost here at Wake Forest, Markel Johnson did not play. Markel Johnson did play in State's victory in Raleigh. So everybody at full strength today. It's, you know, nobody's traveled 4,000 miles, 5,000 miles to get here, so.
After all the time away, Wake Forest is happy to be back home, and NC State trying to reverse last year. On paper, NC State comes in with a really impressive win over Wisconsin in that ACC Big Ten Challenge, as Dan mentioned. Wake Forest wiped out after the rough travel at Penn State. So you would figure that NC State has an on-paper advantage. A experienced team, and this young man, Manny Bates, at the center stripe, wins the tip into the backcourt, underway in Winston-Salem.
Now Wake opens in the man-to-man. They'll play some 3-2, 1-2-2 zone every once in a while, but their basic defense is the man-to-man.
Jericho Helms has had an unbelievable 3 games, and he gets right back in the saddle.
And that's what NC State has done well over the last couple games. They attack the basket. And I think you have to do that against Wake Forest. You cannot settle for jump shots. NC State, a very good jump shooting team, but they have to try to attack inside.
Wake Forest is the opposite of that. They just do not shoot the ball well. Here are the 5 that Danny Manning rolls out as a touch in the paint, which he emphasizes, but Odi Oguama does not have the handle.
Well, he got surrounded in there, didn't he?
Ball going through Johnson as you would expect in the first 2 trips, and he misses off the glass. Offensively, Wake Forest just has not found their rhythm. NC State, in each of Kevin Keats' first 2 years, has averaged over 80 a game. Wake Forest nowhere near that, so an offensive edge you would figure for the Wolfpack. Devin Daniels is the man that is starting in C.J. Bryce's spot. And a rejection on the way to the rim. Speaking of, there's our first look at Manny Bates, rim protector.
Manny Bates is not only a great shot blocker, but he's got great timing. He knows when to go and when not to go. This is a great job coming from behind. And watch Bates, he runs into your picture and times it perfectly. He's got a great feel for shot block.
He does an unbelievable job talking to Kevin Keats of blocking shots, but staying away from the body of the shooter. He really has a knack for that. Multiple blocks in each of his first 8 games as the game is tied. Nice drive down the lane for Childress.
That was a really nice job by Childress. He used Oguama to shield him from Manny Bates. Manny Bates wasn't able to get close to try to block that one.
Helms rejected again. And in transition, very nice recovery on the backside by Braxton Beverly.
Childress didn't have a field goal on the game against Penn State. He's already got one there, but he gets right past. And now NC State, Will, has had the ball 4 times, and 4 times they've taken the ball to the basket. No secret about what the game plan is.
Kevin Keats often jokes, I don't think of it as a 30-second shot clock. I think of it as a 3-second shot clock. They have gone quickly, and a travel for Wake Forest.
It doesn't matter whether you go quickly or slowly, as long as what you get at the end is a good shot. And I think that early NC State testing the inside. You want to get inside, but you've got to be careful. If you draw a lot of traffic, you have to find an open player.
They do have some lethal 3-point shooters. Braxton Beverly is one of them. A little bit streaky has been Beverly. Johnson has consistently improved his 3-point shot. Here's a try from the top of the key, and good.
Now, Markel Johnson's 3-point numbers are relatively low this year, but that's because he started the season 2 for 17 from 3, but he has heated up. That was a good-looking stroke right there.
That has been a real part of his development at NC State year over year, working hard on that downtown shot, and he strips it. NC State with their first steal, they thrive on those.
Well, they also do a lot of switching, and they thought they had a mismatch there, did the Deeks, but Johnson, a little bit of a lazy pass, he made him pay for.
Another drive, and too many steps for Johnson.
Markel Johnson is a guy who's not just a standstill three-point shooter. He can get you off the dribble. Here he doesn't. He gets that dribble, and with that step back, really nice fake with the ball. The jab step that drives the defender off gives him enough room to dribble into that three. We talked about the bench, and we see the first bench players.
And there is Olivier Sarr, who has really been spectacular off the bench. 4 double-doubles in the last 5. Kid from France, flourishing. They look to him, but DJ Funderburk. Back-to-back steals for the Wolfpack.
Sarr was trying to get position, and Funderburk just backed away, so Sarr was off balance, and that ball went straight into the hands of Funderburk. Nice work defensively.
Funderburk was in the doghouse for Kevin Keats, an indefinite suspension at the beginning of the year, and really Keats has never gone into much discussion about that as he turns it over. He's back in there. He wasn't even allowed to practice with the team. It's like sort of a murky situation, but as Kevin Keats describes it, he just was not living up to the standards of what I think an NC State basketball player should be.
Well, here's North Carolina State again with the pressure. You have to be strong with the ball against the Wolfpack.
4 straight turnovers for Wake.
There they go again.
Devin Daniels, no, and there's Funderburk with a putback. Wake Forest cleans it up on a second try. Sarr with a defensive board.
Wake Forest is normally a very, very good defensive rebounding team.
Danny Manning talked about that. Limit them to 1 shot. Brandon Childress has a field goal. Wake's only of the game. ACC Network basketball brought to you by Food Lion, the official grocer of the ACC. Back in Winston-Salem, time now for Food Lion's Food for Thought.
Well, North Carolina State, they've got to be very disruptive with their defense. So far, they have been. I think offensively, they have to attack in the lane. They've done that so far as well. Haven't been as successful as they might be. For Wake Forest, they're on pace right now for 32 turnovers. And so they've got to remember to throw the ball to the guys in the white shirts. And I think they have to be able to score. NC State, you mentioned, is a high-scoring team, so Wake Forest has to keep the pressure on by putting points on the board.
Dan, did you write that graphic in the first break? Nostradamus. Danny Manning has not liked the way that the Demon Deacons have held the basketball early in this one.
NC State in the man-to-man.
Oh, good job there to get Pat Andre off his feet, draw the foul. That's a point of emphasis for Wake Forest. They want to get to the free throw line. They've not done enough of that in this season.
Well, in fact, under Kevin Keats, NC State has been outscored substantially, particularly in ACC play, by opponents from the free throw line. And that's been a point of emphasis for the Wolfpack, is to try to play good defense without fouling. But Andre, that time, you know, you can't go for that fake. Easy to say, hard to do. They catch Manny Bates like that, that's one thing. He's a shot blocker, but Andre isn't. So if you're not a shot blocker, you shouldn't be trying to block shots.
Andrew White misses them both, and State maintains that 3-point lead. 3-point is good. C.J. Bryce off the bench, more production.
Well, Bryce is not a high-volume three-point shooter, but he's certainly capable of making it from out there. His game tends to be in the mid-range, but you can't leave him alone out there.
Transfer from UNC Wilmington as Wake. There's second bucket. Torrey Johnson makes the lead 4.
Nice job by Torrey Johnson to get into the lane. Just as North Carolina State has to attack in the lane, I think Wake Forest has to get in there as well. Particularly, I think Sarr has to handle it in the low post.
Pat Andre, the man in the corner for NC State. Kevin Keats talks about the fact that he's one of the best long-range shooters he'd seen in some time. And Devin Daniels. That's the 3rd triple of the afternoon for the Wolfpack.
And when they score, they set that press, and they get another turnover.
Andre strips it away. 4th steal, 5th turnover, another 3. Markel Johnson.
This little 2-2-1 press, Wake not handling it very well, and Johnson made him pay.
They have made all 4 of their 3-point tries as NC State.
And this is what we're talking about with disruptive defense. How can, as a ball handler, can you even look to see who's open if there's a guy in your face like that?
A perfect start thus far for NC State. Try to go over the top to Sarr. Back to him just outside the lane. That is his game, face up to the basket.
Sarr is better facing the basket than with his back to the basket, but he's really improved as a back to the basket player. And I think that Wake Forest needs to continue to throw him the ball inside.
That ended a 12-2 run for the Wolfpack over 3.5 minutes. Contact driving the lane. C.J. Bryce draws a bump. Well, tomorrow, what an early season conference game we have. Cole Anthony and number 7 North Carolina in Charlottesville to take on Dan Bonner's number 5 Virginia. 4 Eastern, 3 Central, right here on ACCN and the ESPN app.
Is it possible that the first 1 to 50 wins that game?
Truly.
Cole Anthony has a very, very strong start. See his numbers tied for second in scoring among freshmen in the NCAA.
I think the question for Carolina is, do they have enough beyond him to put the ball in the basket?
Well, and can he be sufficiently patient to allow the other guys to contribute? So far, he has been. There's Sean D. Brown. He's another very good mid-range inside type player, particularly when he's matched up against Braxton Beverly with a substantial height advantage.
You know, you nailed it on NC State early driving the lane. This is not a drive. Funderburk, that is not his shot. 3-pointer from the top of the key. Wake Forest, on the other hand, Dan, it seems clear they're trying to get right on the periphery of the paint and put up shots.
Actually, Funderburk, that's his first miss from 3 this year. Boy, again, White, he does a nice job getting into the lane, but he's got to find an open man when the defense collapses like that.
Well, little turnaround that drops for C.J. Bryce. Instant offense off the bench.
Absolutely, and that's normally what you see from C.J. Bryce. That's his sweet spot right there.
Wake has missed consecutive field goals after making their first 4. When they've held the basketball, they've shot it quite well. NC State finds Funderburk for a 2-hand slam, and Danny Manning has seen enough.
Boy.
10-point lead for NC State. They're taking it away, and too easy for the Wolfpack. 10-point NC State lead. We'll talk about the ACC schedule. 20 games when we come back. Well, the best conference in college basketball gets back into conference play this weekend. NC State visiting Wake. New Year's Eve is when, in earnest, fully into the swing of ACC play. It is the new 20-game schedule. Those are the particulars. Every team plays 6 teams twice and 8 teams once apiece. And Dan Bonner, this has major implications, and the reason behind it is pretty simple. It is that net rating.
Well, it's all about getting into the NCAA tournament, and the NCAA evaluation tool is one of the ways you get there. An algorithm. Okay, I'm lost already. Those are the numbers there. I don't know what adjusted winning percentage is, something figured out by guys who live in their mom's basement. But the thing there down at the bottom, the team value index, they talk about game results, where the game's played, the quality of your opponent. So the better opponents you play, the better chance you have to have a good rating to get into the NCAA tournament.
Not a lot of algorithms for you in Charlottesville,
No,
Dan?
certainly not. You start talking about algorithms, equations, I'm out.
It is pretty heady language. Mine is spinning at the moment. Down the lane, an Andre rejection. He's been pretty effective, Andre, early.
And he's a guy who's not noted for his prowess on the defensive end. Generally, if he's not making threes, then you got to wonder how much he can help the team. But he's certainly helped them here early in this one.
Again, as part of that renewed commitment to half-court defense, I've been impressed with NC State, as you were watching them on film coming into this game. Torrey Johnson out on the floor for the Demon Deacons, as is Jacoby Neath. He was in the headlines for the wrong reasons last week, as NC State another steal, but Braxton Beverly steps on the end line.
Now, the rule change is if you keep the ball, it's 20 seconds on the shot clock. But since there was actually a change of possession, NC State got that ball, so they get credited with a steal and a turnover. But then Braxton Beverly stepped on the line. So the shot clock now at 30.
But is it at 30.0 or 30.3, Dan Bonner? We don't want to
Actually, when that starts, it's at 30.0.
This is a deep passion of Mr. Bonner, the intricacies of the shot clock. They do get a fresh 30. It's interesting to me when you talk about those net ratings for NC State. They were really upset a year ago that they didn't make the NCAA tournament after Kevin Keatts surprised everyone coming on campus and having a great ACC debut. They were 33 in the net and did not make the tournament.
Well, because they didn't have enough quality wins. Other factor there that we didn't talk about is do you play teams in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, 3, and 4? And that's an important stat too, and NC State just didn't have any of those last two.
Something that does not happen a lot. Manny Bates leaves his feet and commits a foul going for a shot block on Sarr. The ACC championship game is tonight. On the gridiron, we'll have full pregame coverage from Charlotte. Packer and Durham get you started at 4 p.m. Eastern from FanFest. Then the Huddle crew takes you up to game time. You can always watch on the ESPN app if you're out and about, because we've got you covered.
Now, Mark and Wes, are they going to be at the stadium, or since that game is in Charlotte, are they still going to be in Packer's basement?
I guess at the stadium.
Okay.
Out among the fans.
Why is Mark going to bring his dogs to the stadium? Those guys do a great job with that show.
Have to tune in to find out. Virginia in that game for the first time, and they break the long losing streak to Virginia Tech to get through.
Now Wake Forest with some pressure.
Not exactly the most.
No, just trying to make North Carolina State stop and look at it. You know, there's now 15 seconds left on the shot clock.
Price, a rare miss for him, and Sarr cleans it up.
You have to hope, if you're the Wolfpack, that those couple of threes they made in a row there aren't fool's gold, that they're thinking, okay, now I'll just shoot all the time from 3.
Ismail Massoud a little sloppy down the lane. That has been a theme early for Wake. They have turned it over 129 times in their first 9 games, and that is what NC State prides itself on. That's their 7th turnover already, not even yet halfway through the first half.
Well, and it's not an advantage, but it's that kind of a turnover is better than one in transition.
Trying to get Bates for the alley-oop. He comes down and lays it in.
Now, Bates is a guy, his main job is blocking shots, rebounding, playing on the defensive end, but he is developing as an inside post player. Good hands right there.
This last year with a shoulder injury he suffered in his senior year in high school, as a foul is called on NC State. He is a rim attacker. He pretends it on the defensive side and goes after it.
This is just a screen and roll where the Wake Forest defense does not react. They let Bates go straight to the basket. And I think is that foul on Bates, or is it on Markel Johnson?
Markel Johnson, his first.
That's his first. It would have been Bates' second, so it's okay with Kevin Keats.
Keats thought he'd have Danny Dixon and be able to work a 3-man rotation in that front court. He's had to lean much more heavily on Manny Bates. So you're right, the fouls will be something to watch. Deep triple for Sharon Wright.
Now, for all that we've been talking about here, for all the turnovers, for all the struggles Wake Forest has had, this is a 6-point game. North Carolina State has not been able to run away and hide, although they might be if they keep that up.
Again, up top to Bryce.
Again, Wake Forest just doing a very poor job defending a simple screen and roll play.
You know, it's interesting talking to Danny Manning before this game, Dan. He felt like they matched up well from a size perspective at just about every spot on the floor. But at this point, NC State has gone above the rim. Wild pass, but up top. 3 ball off the mark and cleaned up by Daniels.
Childress working really hard to try to create something, and you got to credit NC State's defense. They're making Wake work very hard on the offensive end.
On the other end, Daniels.
Well, that was some pass by Markel Johnson. I don't know how he could even see Daniels in that crowd.
He's got the best assist-to-turnover ratio of his career, his great career, does Johnson, and that adds one to the ledger. Sarr, a beautiful hook shot off the window.
And I think with Olivier Sarr, you got to go and attack him when he gets the ball there. If you're going to allow him to take that much time, he's going to score pretty effectively.
All of a sudden, shots starting to fall on both sides. Johnson a little bit off balance. Bates to the floor. He looked like he took a knee to the head. He is down and in some major discomfort. It looks like maybe he's all right, but that would be big news for an already beleaguered Wolfpack team.
Now, Markel Johnson, one of the best assist guys in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And again, they step away from him. They had him double teamed, but they allowed him to turn to the basket, and then both defenders stepped away, and that allowed him to have that lane to the basket. Now, he's got a long way to go to get to #1, and he's not going to get there, but these are some pretty impressive names in the history of North Carolina State basketball, and he's on that list.
Yeah, you figure, no question, he'll be in the top 4, top 5 in his career. And he's just continued to grow. Another one of these guys, Dan, we see it so often, who sort of tests the waters in the NBA. Childress and one. But I think NC State is happy that Markel Johnson came back on campus, and he clearly made the right decision.
Well, this is an outstanding play by Brandon Childress, because he's going to get around another screen and won't, but he uses his body to protect himself from Manny Bates. Moves the ball to his left hand, forces Bates to come through his body, and Bates gets his second foul. That's a great play by Childress, but that's the kind of plays we're used to seeing Childress make.
That's big news. Bryce is going to watch Bates sit next to him on the bench as he's got the second foul. The rim protector goes to the Pine. There is C.J. Bryce. Childress up top, and no good. Another turnover as Daniels comes underneath to strip it away.
That's just great anticipation by Daniels. He saw that coming from across the court and went and ran that ball down.
Now he'll try from 3. Good.
Daniels, for whatever reason, has struggled during his NC State career shooting the 3. He was great as a three-point shooter at Utah, but he's now made a couple in a row.
11 points off 8 turnovers for NC State. Childress very nearly traveled there. Devin Daniels, by the numbers this season, is the best bench scorer in the ACC. He got the start tonight. He's been very good. Speaking of off the bench, Bryce with a right hand.
And that's something that there is no such thing as transition defense. If you're trying to play transition defense, you are in deep trouble. And unfortunately, with all those turnovers, that's what has been happening to Wake Forest so far this afternoon.
What'd you say? You need to be looking at the big numbers, not the little ones?
Got to be guarding the little numbers, not the big ones.
That's an impressive finish for Childress, trying to keep Wake Forest.
But the Deacs are right in it. It's only an 8-point game. Couple of stops, couple of threes, you're ahead.
Another 3 goes down. Helms. Another triple. Largest lead of 11 for NC State.
Well, Helms is not a guy who has been a great three-point shooter during his career so far, but the last couple of games he is.
Not a foul that Kevin Keats will like from C.J. Bryce. Those two will talk it over. Wolfpack by 11.
How do you go from where you are to where you want to be? And I think you have to have an enthusiasm for life. You have to have a dream, a goal. You have to be willing to work for it.
Well, even after all those years, hard not to get goosebumps. We invite you to join ESPN and the V Foundation in the fight against cancer. Visit v.org/donate. All donations benefit the V Foundation for Cancer Research. Already in the 1-1, that's 7 fouls called on NC State.
And Kevin Keats knows that has been a weakness of his team. When you try to play pressing defense, lots of times you commit fouls. And last year, for example, in ACC play, NC State was outscored by 93 points on the season in conference play from the free throw line. And so they made that a point of emphasis, and he was very upset with C.J. Bryce because that was a silly foul. He had no chance to steal the ball. He just pushed 75 feet away from the basket, and that gives Wake Forest a chance at the line.
Well, Torrey Johnson makes front end up at 1-1 to cut the lead to 10.
The Deacs, however, this will be their 7th free throw here in the first half. They've only made 3 of them so far. So if Wake is going to get to the line, they need to take advantage of that.
You know, it's one of the interesting features of Danny Manning's teams the last couple years, and indeed it has continued this season as Johnson goes to the bench. They are one of the very worst 2-point field goal shooting teams in the country, and yet, Dan, for one reason or another, they shoot more than almost anybody in the country from inside the 3-point line. They need to get to the free throw line to score points.
And they're pretty adept at it. Boy, again, Wake Forest, Olivier Sarr in particular, has just not done a very good job on the screen and roll.
It has made offensive strides this season, acclimating to the American game from France. Almost another turnover as NC State gets a hand on it. They've made State 7 of their last 9 field goals, 4 in a row. Sarr seems to be figuring out some aspects of the American game, Dan, but to your point on the defensive end, there is work to be done.
Well, he just has not handled the screen and roll a couple of times very well, and I think you have to credit NC State with that. They are attacking him, and when you attack off the dribble and wheel into the lane, it forces the big guy to make a decision, and he's not getting very much help from his teammates coming over to rotate.
Isaiah Mucius has not seen a lot of the basketball, but he knocks down a triple to get Wake back within 8.
Mucius not a great three-point shooter, but that's a big basket, and the Deeks are hanging in. But again, how many times has NC State dunked it so far in this first half?
Time Funderburk. There have been so many clear lanes to the basket. There was some contact on the way up there. You're right. Easy lanes to the hoop. It's a 10-point lead now, Dan. It feels like NC State has in so many ways dominated this game.
And that's a very good point. You look at the scoreboard, it's a 10-point game, and if you weren't looking at the board, you'd think NC State was ahead by at least twice that. So Wake is still in the ball game here. They just have to stop turning it over and make a couple of baskets.
There's Sarr. Nice spin move, but no finish with the left.
The bulk of Funderburk, I think, kept Sarr away from the goal. That's a good defensive play without fouling.
He'll try another 3. He's missed both of those here today. He had made his first 2 this season.
Nice pass.
Beverly triple.
Boy, that's a great pass. And Beverly is the guy, if you leave him open from 3, he's going to ring you up. Talked to Kevin Keats before the game, and I asked him about all the drives to the basket that Beverly had, and he said he was yelling at Beverly, no, 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 because he wants Beverly out there shooting 3s.
He said he and Helms sort of reversed roles in their win against Wisconsin. Another bump, more free throws to come for Wake Forest. Next Saturday, #1, Louisville hosts Eastern Kentucky at the KFC Yum Center, one of the best venues in the conference and in the country. That's noon Eastern, 11 Central, right here on ACCN and the ESPN app. You and I both see in Louisville, they are so impressive. It's not just Wara, they are deep and they could win it all.
They are deep, they are talented, they are experienced, and their freshman class is outstanding. They are the real thing, and they're not going to go undefeated, so they won't stay #1 all year long, but they have as good a chance as anybody to win the national championship.
It's amazing when you think about it. I mean, we know the pedigree of that program. Louisville is always going to be able to recruit. They are so well supported in that market. But when you think about all the scandal that befell that program, in the blink of an eye, way ahead of schedule, Chris Mack has just turned it right around.
Well, and Chris Mack has, and Chris Mack is a great coach, but you have to be fair and say that the cupboard wasn't exactly bare, that they had some good players coming in, but they play with a tremendous amount of intensity. They shoot the ball very well. That's just a very impressive team.
They've done it in the early going anyway without a couple of their best players as Louisville.
Well, you got to be careful about that, Will, because when a guy gets hurt, he suddenly becomes your best player. So
that's a good point. Point NC State lead. There is Helms. Nice ball fake. Can't finish. And Funderburk has been active.
And that's something that Wake Forest generally does not do, and that is give up offensive rebounds and second chance opportunities. But that is as good a tip as you will see.
He's got 8 in the first half. A bump and offensive foul. We'll get Sharon right. NC State filling it up. They lead by 13. NC State out to a 13-point lead, and Dan Bonner, it's been the 3-point shot.
Well, not only has it been the 3-point shot, but there's 5 different guys who have made a 3-point shot. So North Carolina State doing a great job, not only in transition, but in the half court. They're passing the ball very effectively. Are the Wolfpack, they have 11 assists already in the game. And It's really been tough. Wake Forest is struggling. They've got 6 free throws, but keep in mind a free throw counts only 1. Those ones from beyond the three-point arc count 3.
Even I can do that math, and I don't even need an algorithm to do it.
Or an equation.
No net ratings needed. Funderburk has been really good in this half, but short there.
Well, he's been really good moving on the defensive end, dunking the ball. He hasn't been so good with his jump shots. This is a very important last 3:25 here for Wake Forest. They have a chance to climb back into this game.
On the flip side, you feel like maybe NC State smells blood.
Well, we'll see. That's the kind of NC State team. That's a 2. Would have been a 3 last year, but it's a 2 this year.
Helms pure from the corner. The analytics guys would tell you that that's the worst shot in the game, but when it swishes through, it's hard to say that. Largest lead and an answer. There's another one of those Wake answers when the game is kind of teetering.
It's Brandon Childress. He is the one guy who has performed so far offensively. He's got 12 points.
They're hanging around. Back into the post for Funderburk. From behind, tipped away by Shondi Brown.
Don't usually get away with that. Lots of times that'll be called a foul. Funderburk just not very strong with the ball inside. And Beverly's going to pick up a foul that time. And we talked about Brandon Childress being a guy who has to play well for Wake Forest. And this is a situation where he plays off the ball, just gets himself behind the three-point line. NC State trying to double team, and if you're going to double team, you don't want to leave Childress alone. Obviously, a much better game today than against Penn State.
You had to expect that, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Too good a player. If you're Kevin Keats, things are going well. You lead now by 11 on the free throw make. On the other side of this, they've not attempted a free throw. Only 1 foul has been called on Wake. There has been some contact. The officiating to this point does feel slightly one-sided.
No, Will, I would disagree with you. I think that NC State's getting fouls called on them because they're being very aggressive on the defensive end. And one of the reasons that NC State has 43 points is because Wake Forest simply hasn't been as aggressive on the defensive end. You know, all the coaches say play good defense without fouling, but if you're not committing any fouls, I would submit that you're barely guarding anybody.
Again, the lead cut to 10. Nice thought about a 3. Drives the lane in big-time traffic. And Wake Forest comes away.
It's a situation where Wake, I think, needs to try to push the ball up the court to get down there before State can set the half-court defense. Childress is telling him to get out of there.
Johnson almost another steal. 5 on the shot clock. Top of the key. 3 for Brown.
And that was a good, tough possession by Wake Forest. NC State swiped at the ball, bumped. They almost got it a couple of times, but Wake hung in there, and finally they got a 3. Now they've got the crowd involved.
Now, you talked about the importance of the last 3 minutes. They've cut it to 7. Helms, teardrop, no. Offensive foul.
And one of the things that we've seen, it's been a couple of possessions since Wake Forest turned it over. If Wake can set the defense, they're a little bit better. Helms tries to take the ball to the basket, and when you get there, you have to jump stop and rise up and shoot the jumper. You can't shoot the jumper while you're flying forward because you're going to get called for a charge just about every time.
Helms' first foul, he goes to the bench. Andre on with 73 seconds in the opening half. Impressive resilience shown by Wake, and there is another offensive foul, and I think that's the right call.
Really a good job. Wake on an 8-0 run. They had a chance to increase it. But this is just a situation where you have both feet on the floor facing the dribble. You're allowed to move your feet to stay in position. And anytime the official sees the offensive player's shoulder go into the chest of the defender, that's going to be a charge.
Unquestionably, that was the legal guarding position. He did not enter the cylinder. That was, as you say, the lowering of the shoulder. That just makes it so much easier of a call for the officials. You know, NC State, Dan, had done such a great job in the last 2 games, turning it over 13 times combined. They've been a little less careful with the ball here today.
Well, they're playing quickly on offense, and sometimes when you do that, you turn the ball over.
5 giveaways. Bryce, there's number 6, steps on the sideline.
Now, we just talked about the fact that Sarr had not been doing a good job on the screen and roll situation, and that time he and Neath double teamed off that screen, and NC State turned it over. That's a really good defensive play.
NC State has not scored now in 2:20. It seems impossible to think that Wake Forest could cut the lead further. Rejection by Funderburk, and a whistle as they fought for the basketball. That will be called on Brown. NC State will have the ball.
But interestingly enough, there's 44 seconds left in the first half, and that is the 4th team foul against Wake Forest. And Wake has battled their way back into the game.
Now on the flip side, Wake State, big possession for them. Any thought of trying to push it and get a 2-for-1?
College coaches never do that, so no, that's not going to happen. That's a good idea, but it's not going to happen.
Working the clock down, under 10. At the free throw line, Daniels, no. And the drought offensively continues. Wake pushes, and a strip on the backside for Johnson, and State will have the last shot.
And there's your 2-for-1.
Just how they drew it up. Andre, no. Second chance will go off the window for Bryce, and that is how the first half will come to a close with a 9-point NC State lead. Daniels back in the lineup, 8 points, 3 steals, 2 rebounds, a stat sheet stuffer, and NC State leads it by 9. 45-36, NC State leading here at Wake Forest. Coming up after the break, we'll be back with our halftime report from Winston-Salem. On the road in Winston-Salem, NC State, a 9-point halftime lead, 45-36. Along with Dan Bonner, Will Fleming, and Dan, at times it looked like NC State would run away with this thing, but NC State watched Wake show some real resilience.
Well, what NC State did, they started the game very strongly on the defensive end of the court. They had 8 steals in the first half. They forced 12 turnovers. They moved the ball very well. They were able to get it inside on the screen and roll and backdoor cuts, and so NC State just did a great job getting a lot of different people involved. They shot the ball over 50%. They made threes. However, Brandon Childress has kept Wake Forest in this game. He's made all of his shots, so all of his free throws, all of his three-point shots. Here's one of them, all of his field goal attempts. So he's got 12 points. He's got a couple of assists, and I think he's doing a great job keeping Wake in the game. You see, each team has shot the ball very well. The issue here has been the Wake Forest turnovers. The Deacs have turned the ball over 12 times. And against a team like NC State, you simply can't turn it over that many times and expect to have a lead.
So if you're Danny Manning in the locker room, what's the message? Nice job hanging around, or we got to take better care of the basketball?
Well, they're both message. I think the emphasis is on we got to take better care of the basketball, because when the Deacs have been able to get shots, they've done a pretty good job converting those shots. Now they've dug themselves a little hole. They got to climb back in.
NC State has been tough to beat when leading at the half, a 9-point edge. Markel Johnson has been all over the place for the Wolfpack, and he'll look to do it again for NC State. A lead by 9 to the Wolfpack. More of Markel and the Wolfpack right after this. We welcome you to ACC Network Basketball, presented by Foodline. 45-36, NC State leading at Wake Forest. Will Fleming, Dan Bonner. We came on the air, Dan, talking about Markel Johnson. He and Brandon Childress have delivered.
Markel Johnson is one of those guys who sometimes tries to do a little bit too much, but not today. Markel Johnson has played very well under control. He's hit a couple of threes. He has done a nice job moving the ball around. In addition to his 6 points, he's also got 5 assists. He's got a couple of steals. And Brandon Childress, I don't know that you can ask him to do much more. He's hit all 4 of his field goal attempts, including a 3-point basket. He's hit all 3 of his free throw attempts. He is single-handedly almost keeping Wake Forest in the game.
Their contributions quite similar, well within themselves, controlled output. Danny Manning will huddle the guys before starting this second half, and you would figure a point of emphasis has got to be turnovers. They just did not take care of the basketball. There is the matchup between Childress and Johnson.
And it's been a good matchup, and obviously those two guys don't go up against one another all the time, but Johnson is the guy that's got to set the tone for NC State. He has done that very well. Childress is the guy who's got to set the tone for Wake Forest, and he's done that very well. The problem, and you only have to look at one number, is the turnover number. 12 turnovers for Wake Forest, and that has resulted in 15 North Carolina State points. Wake Forest has forced 6 turnovers, but only generated 3 points. So 15-3 in points off turnovers in a 9-point game. It's no secret what the difference here has been in the first half.
7 games in a row now, NC State with at least 7 steals. That has been a hallmark of Kevin Keatts. For Danny Manning, he and Keatts have both seen bench scoring. We talked about that coming off the top. 17 bench points for NC State, 14 for Wake. It's been top to bottom contribution. Beverly tried to one-touch pass it to Funderburk and gives it away.
Well, you need to come down with that one there. And Manny Bates, remember, has those 2 fouls, and that's why Funderburk starts the second half.
For all the talk of NC State taking it away from Wake Forest, they've now given it away 7 times.
Oh, what a pass.
In traffic, and nice finish with a left hand for Sarr.
That's actually Oklahoma. Sarr will come off the bench here in the half, but Oklahoma does a nice job just cutting down into the lane. Sometimes if you're a big guy, you stand outside and watch your guard drive to the basket. That doesn't work. You got to follow him, and that's exactly what Oklahoma did, and he was rewarded. Nice pass by Childress.
The 6'9" freshman from Raleigh, Oklahoma, just played a couple minutes in that first half as Helms sees a triple rattle home.
That hit about every part of the rim you could hit before it went in the basket. But that time, the Wake Forest defense collapsed on the inside guy, the big guy on that screen and roll, and they left somebody open from 3, and NC State made him pay for it.
Another strip, another steal, and off they go. 2-hand slam for Daniels.
That is a great job by Helms to pitch the ball ahead quickly. He didn't wait. Sometimes the guy will take a couple of dribbles, but that's not what happens here. Helms gets the ball out ahead. Daniels is able to get the dunk. That is a great start for NC State.
Well, revisiting our keys to the game, you'd have to say that at least for NC State, they have really lived up to everything that you said they had to do in this game.
They've played the style they wanted to play. Wake Forest, of course, turning the ball over hasn't helped themselves. They have shot the ball very well, but it doesn't matter how many times you shoot the ball if you're getting fewer shots. NC State in this game has 39 field goal attempts. Wake Forest has 23. When you give the ball to the other guys, you're not going to get a shot.
There's Andrian White, who had a really quiet first half.
They had a mismatch inside. Oklahoma was in there against Beverly, and they didn't find it.
Deflection active on the defensive end.
You know, if you're one of the guys out on the perimeter, there's 6 seconds left on the shot clock, and you see Funderburk guarding you, you know that you've got a mismatch inside. You have to find that.
Childress, as the clock winds down.
Nice job.
Open 3 will not go. Yeah, Euseus had a really good look at that. Another good dish for Childress.
And Euseus is a high volume, but not a high percentage three-point shooter. Beverly certainly hasn't found very much room today.
Foul at the end of the shot clock. That is, for NC State, an eternal offensive possession.
Yeah, they never get it down to 5 on the shot clock. And if they're going to get it down to 5 on the shot clock and be that far away from the basket, you don't want to commit the foul there, obviously.
There's foul called on Odi Oguama.
Well, Oguama is an energy kind of guy. Now he picks up another foul.
That's a tale of 2 halves early on anyway. Lots of whistles against Wake, who...
Well, that whistle right there, I mean, that's out in front of God and everybody. You know, you just can't do that out there.
God, and everybody saw that one. And a turnover. Nice strip coming the other way. Torrey Johnson, steal and a bucket.
It was actually a good play by Beverly to not try to contest that. You know, if Beverly's too small to block the shot, all you're going to do is commit a foul. He gave that one away. Don't make it worse.
Beverly had a little room there, but it went away. Rejection, Oguama. NC State with 10 on the shot clock.
Well, that didn't reset to 20 because the ball never hit the rim.
Runner for Beverly.
Beverly has decided that he can drive the ball to the basket and shoot twos. Got the first one blocked, but that's really a nice job. I mean, if he shows the ability to get the ball to the goal, that's going to make him impossible to guard out on the perimeter.
Is that one of those where Kevin Keats is saying no, no, no down the lane?
I think so, particularly after you had the last one blocked.
Tie up with Oguama and Beverly. The arrow will keep the ball with the Demon Deacons. ACC championship game tonight. And we will have full pregame coverage from Charlotte. Packer and Durham get you started at 4 Eastern from FanFest. Figure out the dogs as we get there. Then the Huddle crew takes you up to game time. You can always watch on the ESPN app. You're out and about because we've got you covered.
And Beverly leaving the game here. He got tangled up there going for the ball. I think that, who was that? Shondi Brown from Wake Forest may have landed on top of him.
He's sort of doubled over. No medical attention at the moment, but clearly winded and in some discomfort. They're going to say the deflection went off of Helms there. He thought that should be NC State ball with 4 on the shot clock.
Well, of course he thought it should be NC State ball. He's not the most objective observer out there.
You're saying that's why the officials don't wear red jerseys.
I'm going to trust Mark Schur on that one.
They've got to hurry. I'm not sure they realize it. Off balance. Rainbow 3 for Childress. Almost goes down.
And Olivier Sarr back in the game battling for that rebound. That's what happens if you're Oguama. You get those 2 quick fouls and out you come.
That's good. So I won't have to confuse Oguama and Sarr again in this game.
Maybe it's early yet.
This vantage point, in all fairness, it's not the easiest to pick guys up, as a deflection will keep the ball with the Wolfpack.
Now, Devin Daniels took the ball into the lane. Kevin Keats is telling him, just shoot the ball. He got in there, he got off his feet, and he thought, wow, am I going to shoot or pass? When you get in the lane and you jump up in the air like that, you have to shoot the ball. You can't be worried about passing it once you get that close. And Daniels has had an outstanding game. Kevin Keats hasn't had a whole lot to complain about with his play, but certainly he had a problem there.
One thing to watch is when Manny Bates will make his return into the game. The shot blocker for NC State really saddled with early foul trouble. Funderburk came in and played very well in his stead. Top of the key 3, and that is good for Helms.
You know, I'm sitting up here watching Daniels just dribble all around, and I'm thinking this really isn't a very good offensive set with only one guy's going to handle the ball, but he did all that dribble and make one pass, get a 3, not bad.
Helms will get 13, made shots, make just about every trip look good. Nice answer. Let me make sure I get it. That is Sarr on the putback.
Graded by Musius. He missed a shot, but the entire NC State defense went with him.
Offensive
That's
rebound
a double
for
dribble,
Daniels.
and that's a good call.
Well, NC State leads it by 13, 55-42. They've done it on the offensive end. We'll talk about the Wolfpack D when we come back. Well, revisiting our keys to the game, you'd have to say that at least for NC State, they have really lived up to everything that you said they had to do in this game.
They've played the style they wanted to play. Wake Forest, of course, turning the ball over hasn't helped themselves. They have shot the ball very well, but it doesn't matter how many times you shoot the ball if you're getting fewer shots. NC State in this game has 39 field goal attempts. Wake Forest has 23. When you give the ball to the other guys, you're not going to get a shot.
There's Andrian White, who had a really quiet first half.
They had a mismatch inside. Oguama was in there against Beverly, and they didn't find it.
Deflection active on the defensive end.
You know, if you're one of the guys out on the perimeter, there's 6 seconds left on the shot clock, and you see Funderburk guarding you, you know that you've got a mismatch inside. You have to find that.
Childress, as the clock winds down.
Nice job.
Open 3 will not go. Yeah, Mucius had a really good look at that. Another good dish for Childress.
Mucius is a high volume but not a high percentage three-point shooter. Beverly certainly hasn't found very much room today.
Foul at the end of the shot clock. That is, for NC State, an eternal offensive possession.
Yeah, they never get it down to 5 on the shot clock. And if they're going to get it down to 5 on the shot clock and be that far away from the basket, you don't want to commit the foul there, obviously.
There's foul called on Odi Oguama.
Well, Oguama is an energy kind of guy. And there he picks up another foul.
That's a tale of two halves early on anyway. Lots of whistles against Wake, who...
Well, that whistle right there, I mean, that's out in front of God and everybody. You know, you just can't do that out there.
Oh, God, and everybody saw that one. And a turnover, nice strip coming the other way. Torrey Johnson, steal and a bucket.
It was actually a good play by Beverly to not try to contest that. You know, Beverly's too small to block the shot. All you're going to do is commit a foul. He gave that one away. Don't make it worse.
Beverly had a little room there, but it went away. Rejection, Oguama. NC State with 10 on the shot clock.
Well, that didn't reset to 20 because the ball never hit the rim.
Runner for Beverly.
Beverly has decided that he can drive the ball to the basket and shoot twos. Got the first one blocked, but that's really a nice job. I mean, if he shows the ability to get the ball to the goal, that's going to make him impossible to guard out on the perimeter.
Is that one of those where Kevin Keats is saying no, no, no down the lane?
I think so, particularly after you had the last one blocked.
Tie up with Oguama and Beverly. The arrow will keep the ball with the Demon Deacons. ACC championship game tonight. And we will have full pregame coverage from Charlotte. Packer and Durham get you started at 4 Eastern from FanFest. Figure out the dogs as we get there. Then the Huddle crew takes you up to game time. You can always watch on the ESPN app. You're out and about because we've got you covered.
And Beverly leaving the game here. He got tangled up there going for the ball. I think that, who was that? Sean D. Brown from Wake Forest may have landed on top of him.
He's sort of doubled over. No medical attention at the moment, but clearly winded and some discomfort. They're going to say the deflection went off of Helms there. He thought that should be NC State ball with 4 on the shot clock.
Well, of course he thought it should be NC State ball. He's not the most objective observer out there.
You're saying that's why the officials don't wear red jerseys.
I'm going to trust Mark Schur on that one.
They've got to hurry. I'm not sure they realize it. Off balance. Rainbow 3 for Childress. Almost goes down.
And Olivier Sarr back in the game battling for that rebound. That's what happens if you're Oguama. You get those 2 quick fouls and out you come.
That's good. So I won't have to confuse Oguama and Sarr again in this game.
Maybe it's early yet.
This vantage point, in all fairness, it's not the easiest to pick guys up, as a deflection will keep the ball with the Wolfpack.
Now, Devin Daniels took the ball into the lane. Kevin Keats is telling him, just shoot the ball. He got in there, he got off his feet, and he thought, wow, am I going to shoot or pass? When you get in the lane and you jump up in the air like that, you have to shoot the ball. You can't be worried about passing it once you get that close. And Daniels has had an outstanding game. Kevin Keats hasn't had a whole lot to complain about with his play, but certainly he had problem there.
One thing to watch is when Manny Bates will make his return into the game. The shot blocker for NC State really saddled with early foul trouble. Funderburg came in and played very well in his stead. Top of the key 3, and that is good for Helms.
You know, I'm sitting up here watching Daniels just dribble all around, and I'm thinking this really isn't a very good offensive set with only one guy's going to handle the ball, but he did all that dribble and make one pass, get a 3, not bad.
Helms will get 13, made shots, make just about every trip look good. Nice answer. Let me make sure I get it. That is Sarr on the putback.
Graded by Mucius. He missed a shot, but the entire NC State defense went with him.
Offensive
that's
rebound.
That's a double dribble,
Daniels.
and that's a good call.
Well, NC State leads it by 13, 55-42. They've done it on the offensive end. We'll talk about the Wolfpack D when we come back. A 13-point NC State lead at Wake Forest. They've done it offensively, but Dan Bonner, it has been a team effort on the other end.
Well, the defense has been really effective, and as you watch the guys in the red shirts here, they react to the ball, they cover up open players, they go to spots, they just move around, they help one another out. This is the way that you teach your team to play half-court defense, and then they finally deflect the ball out of bounds. It's Wake Forest ball, but that's really tough. If you're playing against a defense like that, you're going to have a long night.
Hands in passing lanes all day long. Meantime, Manny Bates, the young shot blocker, back out on the floor. He and Sarr tangling in the paint.
Well, Sarr presents a sort of a different kind of problem for him. A big, strong, low post guy. Nice pass.
There he is, and they'll get Markel Johnson for the foul.
Well, Markel Johnson got to where he was supposed to be, but there's just very little that Markel Johnson at 6'1" can do against Olivier Sarr at 7 feet tall.
Well, one thing he can do is maybe hit him in the eye. I think he did that, and Sarr is a little bit rattled. You know, Dan, I've been so impressed when Childress has had the ball in his hands. That's the third or fourth time. He seems to have such great awareness to make the right decision.
Well, Brandon Childress is, you know, last year he led the Deacons in scoring and assists and steals and minutes played and three-pointers made. And I think that he has taken a step back this year. He's trying to get other guys involved, and his ability to pass the ball is outstanding. So Sarr did get hit in the eye, and he is getting some medical attention over there.
Oguama, I can identify him here. This time he is in for Sarr. And now Childress finds himself with the ball at the top of the key. Floater will not go, and Daniels comes away with the board. So many times in the first half, the lead was like this, 13, and Wake kept finding ways to make big shots. NC State unable to really pull away. Can they do it here? Bryce turnaround. And he comes away with it after
he
three.
got the
Deacons
ball,
touched it.
But it was Devin Daniels that kept that ball alive. And Wake Forest normally doesn't give up offensive rebounds, but NC State starting to chip away, getting more and more of them here, particularly early in the second half.
7 on the shot clock. Way too easy for Helms, but fades away. Another offensive board. Bates with a right.
And again, that's something that just doesn't happen. Wake Forest gives up fewer than 6 second chance points per game on the season.
15-point Wolfpack lead. Big trip for the Deeks. I think on the bottom of that play, C.J. Bryce got a hand on the ball, even though Bates was skying for another block.
And this is just a great battle inside. What great hands by Bates. He's getting pushed down below, and he's still able to control the ball and get it up to the basket.
Wake badly needs a bucket here. Ejection, but a second play for Oguama makes it a 13-point game.
That's the second time we've seen Oguama do that. Your guy drives to the basket, don't stand there and watch, follow. And because he followed it and Bates went for the block, Oguama was in perfect position for the rebound.
What a play there by Markel Johnson, finding room down the lane.
And a nice job by North Carolina State, Will, to take the ball and get up the court quickly, even after Wake Forest had scored a basket. The Deeks simply not ready to play defense, and Markel Johnson made him pay for it.
By his standards, a quiet-ish offensive day. He's got 8, but he's contributed in so many other ways as Oguama avoids the block there.
And what he does is just follows Childress. Childress drew 2 guys, and Childress found him. Childress was looking for him the whole time. Great pass. You know, we try to make it very hard, but sometimes it's pretty simple.
Good shot fake for Helms, and then not sure where he was going with that pass. It ends up with 7 on the clock in the hands of Johnson. What a play and shot for Johnson.
Boy, Markel Johnson is a guy that you don't normally associate with attacking the basket, but when he attacks the basket, he is very, very good. You know, he doesn't go to the free throw line a lot, and that's something that a guy who attacks the basket normally does. And this guy, he can attack the basket in any number of ways.
Childress with 15, and again, another one of those buckets to keep Wake involved in the game.
You got to get a couple of defensive stops. When you're behind, obviously, you can't trade baskets with your opponent.
Size edge for Helms, going to work in the post. Looking for Bates, and it will stay with NC State.
That's played by Childress to come down and help out on defense.
He's been all over the place as Childress, although NC State on the road in a place that's not been kind to them of late leads by 12. Tomorrow, a heavyweight matchup in the ACC. Cole Anthony and number 7 North Carolina in Charlottesville to take on number 5 defending national champion Virginia. 4 Eastern, 3 Central right here on ACCN and the ESPN app. Well, if the defending champs want to get it done, they'll have to contend with that young man, Cole Anthony.
Who's had a great start to his college career. And the big game he had against Notre Dame, he was really something.
Hurst onto the scene, 5 on the clock and a bailout because at the top of the key.
It's the second time in the second half that there has been a foul committed by Wake Forest against NC State when they were well past the three-point line with 5 seconds left on the shot clock.
That time Jacoby Neath, who was in a little bit of a scandal, not a scandal, but a controversy. The team was out in Anaheim for the Wooden Classic, and some Disneyland employees commented that some language had been used by Neath and one of his teammates. As another rejection on the backside by Bates, and NC State off on the run. Beverly thought about a 3. Anyway, they were taken off the floor for the final. They lost to Arizona, did Wake Forest. But after a thorough investigation within all angles of the university, they thought there were some major discrepancies in what was actually said, what actually happened with what was being reported by the employees. And so they reinstated the kids and said, we're happy to have them back. It was not that big a deal. Beverly, that could be a big deal as it pushes the lead ever further for NC State.
Well, let's think about what we talked about just a few minutes ago, that coming into this game, Wake Forest only given up 6 second chance points in the game, per game. Today they have given up 11 offensive rebounds, and now 17 second chance points. So Wake, they continue to score fairly effectively, but they just can't get a stop. And when they do get a stop, they can't get a rebound.
It's like those offensive boards and second chance and third chance points for NC State have come in bunches here. Helms, offensive foul.
Nice job by North Carolina State once again in the half-court offense, and Beverly just moves behind the dribbler. The dribbler goes to one side, the defense shifts over to that side, and Beverly just fills into an empty spot, and he's wide open. I mean, you got to be a little closer to him than that.
Second foul on Helms. In fact, both have come on the offensive side. Plays just like that. Daniels in Childress' back pocket, and Wake will keep the ball. All eyeballs will be on the John Paul Jones Center tomorrow in Charlottesville as the Cavs welcome the Tar Heels.
That is a place where recently North Carolina has not played very well. They have not scored a lot of points, and it'll be a real challenge. Virginia, obviously, this year is a team that is struggling offensively, and so if North Carolina can get it going a little bit, that'll be a big help for them. But that's a big if, playing against that Cavalier defense.
I think everybody expects that with Tony Bennett at the helm and the way that they do it at UVA, the defense is not going to be a question. That will be reliable all year. The question is, if they want to really contend again, can they score enough?
Oh, my.
Way downtown for Beverly.
Well, Beverly in the first half just was not that engaged offensively. He only took 1 shot. But in the second half, he's making up for it.
Got 11 on the game, playing the part of Kyle Guy today for the Wolfpack. Star in some big-time traffic. Good to see him back in the game, left with that eye injury, and Childress up top for 3.
And again, Wake Forest shooting the ball very well in the second half.
You know, balanced scoring has been a hallmark for NC State. While they're shorthanded, they most nights dress only 8 scholarship players. All 8 of them average over 6, and more of the same tonight because 4 of them are in double figures. Wild miss, but looking to clean it up, and Isaiah Musius has a chance at an and 1.
Now, North Carolina State has been putting on a show here offensively in the second half. Nice job by Andre to get the rebound, and then all of a sudden Markel Johnson pushes it up the court. He just leaves it for Beverly. He's out by the W in Wake Forest, and he lets it go.
Steph Curry territory. Usius has attempted only 6 free throws now this season, and he's made just 3. But again, Wake is hanging around. Up top, Thunderbird.
Boy, Daniels is having himself a game. That's now 3 assists that he has to go along with his 3 steals, 10 points for Thunderbird. So is that 5 guys now in double figures for NC State?
It is indeed. They have learned, Dan, have these NC State players that if you throw it up toward the rim, Thunderbird's a good bet to go get it. Torrey Johnson, no. And a good defensive stand.
See, I thought Johnson had a chance to throw it inside to Sarr. Sarr is working hard in there. I think you have to reward him by throwing him the ball. He doesn't have to shoot it, but you got to get him in there. Got to get it in there. There he blocks the shot. And we've seen North Carolina State have a lot of success with the screen and roll. And here you see it again. Not really much of a screen, but Sarr does, again, he does not react back very quickly. Nobody reacts back to help him out. And that's the 3rd or 4th time we've seen NC State get an easy shot on that exact play.
He's the guy you highlighted, Daniels. He gives it away.
Yeah, dribbled it off his foot.
11th turnover for NC State. There's Sarr.
I think Sarr was surprised to see Andre standing there.
A lot of contact and a foul going to be called on Thunderbird. He got him on the forearm. NC State has used that screen and roll to effect all afternoon long. We'll look deep into it. 13-point Wolfpack lead. NC State rolling in Winston-Salem, and Dan Bonner, it's been the screen and roll that's got them going.
Well, I mean, it's a very simple play. Wake Forest has struggled with it. The big guy goes out and tries to stop. The offensive guard makes a nice move by making the big guy commit, and then Wake has been very slow in getting the help. Here, no help at all, and nice job by NC State to recognize the weakness and continue to exploit it.
There's that balance on display. Another free throw miss for Wake Forest. 5 guys in double figures for the Wolfpack. Danny Manning wants to get to the free throw line, but he assumes they'll make when they get there.
Well, that's their 13th attempt. This is 14. And so now they're 9 for 14. You know how many free throws NC State has shot in this game?
That would be none.
Not one. Wake now trying to show some pressure.
So often this game has been in this range as Daniels tries a 3. It feels like maybe 70% of the time it's been a 12 or a 13-point lead for NC State. Chance to get closer as Sarr down the lane. They'll go to the line. This game was tied at 2, Dan. NC State has led since that time, but they have not been able to put it away.
Wake Forest continues to remain within striking distance, and that time a really nice play coming up the court in transition. Sarr just not strong enough to get the ball to the basket. You'd like your big guy to be able to score that one and get an and one.
I guess that's part of the continued evolution from the European game to this one. 2nd foul on Daniels. And another free throw miss.
And that really complicates matters. If you're trying to come back in a game, you just cannot leave points at the free throw line. And Sarr, his development, when he came in, they listed him at 220. Last year at 235. This year at 255. So he's done a great job working on his body.
Cut it to 11. Look, NC State has made 11 three-pointers. They've not had a free throw attempt. At some point, Dan, the numbers just don't add up. If you miss free throws and don't get enough 2-point shot attempts,
and you turn the ball over and give up offensive rebounds, those are things that always come back to haunt you.
NC State has attempted 14 more field goals than has Wake Forest.
Well, Wake has only turned it over once in this half, but offensive rebounds have been the bugaboo. There's an offensive foul.
That's the 3rd time Helms has been called for an offensive foul. He lowers the shoulder there. All 3 of his fouls have come on that end.
And if I'm not mistaken, all 3 of those offensive fouls have been drawn by Brandon Childers.
So good positioning there. And again, chance to cut it to single digits.
Here, Neath handling the ball at the point, and that allows Childers to go off the ball and try to get himself set up for exactly plays like that. Although we'll get a foul on Markel Johnson.
That is his third and the 7th on the Wolfpack. So once again, Wake Forest to the free throw line for the 1-and-1.
And there's 6 minutes and 57 seconds left in the game, so they've got a lot of time here in the 1-and-1 to get some points at the free throw line.
Neath makes the first.
And Neath is a guy who's been playing a few more minutes recently. He's played in 8 of the 9 games, averaging about 15 minutes a game coming in.
The 6'3" freshman from Toronto, they think highly of him. It's interesting, you know, Wake Forest has had such a great history here. Another free throw miss. I mean, you think about Paul and Duncan and Childress and Howard and Minu, all the great players they've had. Wake Forest the last couple of years just has not brought in the caliber player that they're accustomed to. 2 straight recruiting classes without one single top 100 player. Whistle off the ball in NC State.
Well, they did have one and done last year. Jalen Horde left his name in for the draft, and even though he wasn't drafted, he did sign a 2-way contract, and he's actually played a little bit in the NBA. But this is a very difficult league in which to compete without high caliber talent. And that's not to say that Wake Forest doesn't have high caliber talent. It's just not as great as some of the other teams.
There's the first free throw attempt, and all the waiting was for the miss from Bryce. Fans here want free chicken. They'll get it with a second consecutive miss from Bryce. Alas, they'll pay for their chicken sandwiches in Winston-Salem.
If the opponent misses 2 consecutive free throws in the last 8 minutes of the game, and Bryce now, that's 10 points for him, so they've got 6 guys in double figures.
11-point Wolfpack lead. Over the top, Beverly, no match there. Up top from Mucius, but he recovers with a left hand. Now the other way for Bryce, comes down with it. And it looks like it goes off the chest of Sarr. It does. It'll be NC State ball.
Well, down on one end, Beverly makes a great play. He's overmatched here, but he comes down very quickly and slaps the ball away. And Torrey Johnson down on the other end just does a great job getting in the way and not allowing an easy basket.
2 very nice recoveries. Bryce going to work. With the right hand off the window.
With Bryce, that was a tough shot, but when he gets close to the basket and is able to do that spin move and get that turnaround, he's deadly.
See why Kevin Keats has liked him all the way back to his days at UNC Wilmington. Guy who led them with his head coach to consecutive CAA tourney championships and NCAA bids. No good in the lane for Torrey Johnson. Danger time for Wake here with 5:40 to go and a 13-point lead.
Right, if they're going to make a move, they've got to make it now. They can't afford to let NC State stretch it out, and NC State just stretched it out to their largest lead.
They did indeed. 16 with the Beverly 3. Contact down the lane. Neath will shoot a couple of free throws. Next Saturday, #1 Louisville hosts Eastern Kentucky at the KFC Young Center, noon Eastern, 11 Central, right here on ACCN and the ESPN app. That should be relatively routine for Louisville, although I always think, Dan, that the couple of weeks before you get into the heat of conference play, it's been a long preamble to that. For me, the big guns, it's an interesting challenge. You know, you're through finals, maintaining focus with the big heart of the ACC schedule ahead of you can sometimes be tough.
Well, it can be, but it's also a great time of the year for players, because once you're through finals and you're finished, you don't have class, and all you got to worry about is playing basketball.
Not that you ever went to class anyway.
Of course I went to class. You had to go to class.
4 of 9 free throws for Wake in the second half. Yeah, that was such a great feeling. You hand in the last final paper test, whatever it is, it's just the weight of the world off your chest. As Bryce at the elbow, he will not find it. And that is even more true for these basketball players. A lot of times finals are being taken in hotel rooms or submitted after long airplane flights. The toll that the basketball season takes in this semester as those exams are to be taken is rather enormous.
Well, they get a lot of academic support. They have tutors, and they have that kind of help. But you're right. Basketball players this time of the year are traveling around, and while they're doing it, they're trying to take tests. And these guys certainly both passed the test as college basketball players.
They did indeed. The highest scoring father-son combo in ACC history. And of course, Randolph is just a spectacular player here. Now on the bench with Danny Manning. And another free throw miss. Not the way to get back in a game.
It's very difficult. You know, Wake Forest, they've hung around for the most part, but too many turnovers, gave up too many offensive rebounds to North Carolina State, and then the missing the free throws, that just makes it impossible.
Johnson, top of the key. Ooh, missed it all.
Wait, that's another fabulous defensive play by Beverly. There's Randolph Childress, that ACC tournament he had. I can still see him making that three and motioning to the North Carolina player to get up off the floor.
He was gifted, he was confident, and his son is a good one too. That was one of the all-time great single individual performances in that tournament's history.
Well, the two guys who dominated ACC tournaments like that were Randolph in that year and then Wally Walker in 1976.
Bates with a putback, largest lead at 17.
Another offensive rebound, and that's been the bugaboo for Wake Forest in this half. It was turnovers in the first half. It's been failure to get the defensive boards in this half.
19 second chance points for NC State. Bates is going to get another foul, his fourth. He's been in trouble there all day as Sarr will go to a place that's not been kind to the Demon Deacons today.
And the impressive thing about NC State and all their offensive rebounds and second chance points is up to this point in the season, Wake Forest just has not given very many of them. You know, they have been really good on the defensive board. In fact, they get 80% of their of the available defensive rebounds, but not today.
You know, it's been a real team effort. It's not just been Funderburk and Bates. It's been Bryce and Johnson and Daniels all crashing the offensive boards as Sarr makes them both and cuts it back to 15. Light pressure in the full court for Wake, but NC State will walk it across the line.
Well, you're right. There's 5 different players for the Wolfpack who have secured an offensive rebound in the game today.
Trying to split a double, and Johnson gives it away. Childress. Does Wake have one more run in them?
Well, they've got 3.5 minutes left. It's a 13-point game. Certainly they're going to have to force some turnovers. But they've shot the ball pretty well, and so yes, they're still in the game. And see, NC State here, they suddenly took their foot off the gas, and sometimes when you disengage, it's hard to re-engage, but that time, that was a tough pass to throw your big guy.
Down the lane, Sarr, offensive foul. NC State has been a little careless with the basketball, still leading by 13. ACC Network basketball. Brought to you by Food Lion, the official grocer of the ACC. More from Winston-Salem right after this. NC State trying to make that man unhappy and put this thing away. 77-64 they lead. At the moment, State will have the basketball, but a really close call on Sarr.
Well, the question is he in the restricted area or not, Daniels? And very clearly, his foot is on that line. This should have been called a blocking foul, not a charge. Can't be a charging foul if the defender in that situation has his foot in or on or above the restricted area, and he certainly had his foot in the restricted area. Now, it's not the last 2 minutes of the game, so you can't review that.
The Deacon thinks he was in the area, and he wishes he could go to the monitors. That's a big play. Chance with the free throws to make it an 11-point game. As it is, 13. They break the press. And you figure, unlike their DNA, they will take some time here.
And they have not done very well taking the air out of the ball here. They have given it up 2 times in a row. Sometimes in this situation, it's better to just keep doing what you've been doing the entire game that gave you the lead. And what they're looking for here, obviously, is just to run time off the clock and then get to the free throw. And that's only team foul number 6, though.
It's Wake Forest in a little bit of a bind, trailing by 13 with under 3 to go. 20 back onto the shot clock as Brown was called for his second foul. Bryce will attack. Uses the rim and finishes.
Boy, Bryce has been good down the stretch here in the second half. He's now got 14 points in the game. Just a complete team effort by North Carolina State. They've gotten contributions up and down the lineup. Nice play.
Annie Bates front side. You know, Markel Johnson, who had his best ACC scoring effort here in this building 2 years ago, 25 points. It's not been that kind of an output, but he has really done it in other ways.
Well, he has run the show. He's been very patient. I think Bates just fouled out of the game.
He did.
But Markel Johnson has been very under control. He's got 10 points in the game. He's got 7 assists in the game, 2 steals, has a couple of rebounds.
He'll go talk it over with Kevin Keats as indeed Bates is done for the afternoon. He played 17 minutes, did Bates. 8 points, made all 4 of his field goal attempts. And he did, once again, factor in with several block shots. Impressive effort for the big man, although he just couldn't stay on the floor.
That is the first time all year that he has fouled out of the game. He had 4 block shots.
Look, he's got a chance. And not just a chance, he's got an excellent chance. If he's on campus for 4 years, he is going to shatter the all-time career blocks record that held by Thurl Bailey, 95 for him. And on his current pace, Bates is going to go way over 100.
Well, Bates at this point in his career, a really good shot blocker, a good rebounder. They don't need a lot of offense from him, and so whatever he provides, they'll take that. And you say he had 8 points today.
Another turnover for NC State, and to compound matters, Daniels gives it away and fouls. That is the worst possible combo. Kevin Keats understandably upset with that. You give it away and you stop the clock and put him at the line.
Right, when a team's trying to come back, what you don't want to do is you don't want to allow them to score when the clock is stopped. But the challenge for the Deacs is making free throws.
15th turnover for NC State, and they've come in a cluster here late.
Well, they've come here late as NC State is trying to slow things down, run some time off the clock, force Wake into a fouling situation.
I think he made a great point. Just keep running your stuff. Don't let up. Makes 11-point game. Childers, by the way, has got 22, leading the way for the Deacs, who try to turn it over one more time, under 2 minutes, trailing by 11. Helms breaks the press, leaves his feet and bailed out.
Boy, gee, he was really lucky right there.
It's perhaps a teachable moment for Kevin Keats. This has not been a masterclass in finishing as Torrey Johnson undercuts Bryce. I mean, they just have looked tentative and unable to go for the jugular here.
They haven't been trying to go for the jugular. They've been trying to let the air out of the ball, and this is a strategy that a lot of people employ at the end of a game, and this is a strategy if you're going to win close games during the regular season and into the tournament, you have to be able to execute. So there's nothing wrong with the strategy. The execution, however, has not been very good.
And Bryce misses the front end. One last gasp for the Demon Deacons.
See if they can make a 3 here.
Funderburk sends it away. Bryce in transition. And that might well do it for NC State. Quickly the other way. Neath lays it in. And Danny Manning, Mike's going to bring the guys to the bench. Discuss things over. 82 seconds to go. 81-70 NC State looking to lock this thing down. Try to play their way back in are the Deacons. 81-70. Packer and Durham to follow us. They will set the scene for the ACC championship game. Wolfpack trying to take a little bit better care of the basketball here with 82 seconds to go. break the press, and a foul on Childress as Helms gets swatted across the face.
And that's really the strategy you have to employ right now if you're reinforced. Pressure in the backcourt, see if you can get a turnover or a 10-second violation. And then as soon as they get it into the front court, you can't wait. You don't have enough time to play great defense and get stops. You have to foul, hope you miss some free throws. And now, part of this strategy, though, is you've got to go down and make threes.
That's the only way the math works. Helms misses another free throw. Childress roughed up a little bit.
I don't know if Childress was roughed up. I think Bill Covington got roughed up a little bit.
Forward time again for another giveaway. Wake is making it impossible on themselves, even as NC State has kind of cracked the door open for a comeback.
That was a nice job by Markel Johnson, though, to just hang out in the area where that outlet pass was going to be and force Sarr to throw it away.
And they will foul once again as Shandy Brown reaches over the top of Johnson. He has not shot many free throws at all this season, so that's playing to the scouting report. Johnson just 6 of 10 from the free throw line this season.
Well, he's a better free throw shooter than that.
He is.
But it's early in the season. It's like with you baseball guys. And early in the season, the batting averages can be way off one way or the other. But as the season goes on, the numbers work themselves out.
Sample size. It is amazing. In early April, take an 0 for 4, your batting average changes 300 points. Nearing the minute mark in this game. 13-point NC State lead. Sarr. And this time, Beverly clearly outside of the restricted area, but they call the block anyhow, and Sarr goes to the line.
So you got to be a little bit careful with that if you're Beverly. He actually started falling, I think, before contact was there, and you could get yourself warned for a flop.
We saw that the other night.
The game up there, Rutgers Pitt game. There was about every rules thing in that game you could possibly imagine.
11 points for Sarr. Well, our viewers know that there's nobody they'd rather have on hand for difficult rule situations than Professor Bonner.
Well, I bet Professor Bonner would prefer not to have any difficult rule situations.
Today we've had that. Sarr cuts the lead back to 11.
Wake just doesn't have the time.
And to your point, they've not made enough threes. Another giveaway. And a jam for Neath. Will not go away, back within 9.
Wake has 1 timeout left. So if you're North Carolina State now, all you have to do is hang on to the basketball and then, of course, make free throws.
That's the double bonus. He'll shoot 2. So that's it, right? Don't turn it over and make free throws. You win the game.
There's no way you can lose the game if, you know, with an 11 or 9, I guess, is 9-point lead now.
Johnson does just that. You know, looking at this team, Dan, I know that until New Year's Eve, ACC full-blown conference play is not going to begin in earnest. But from what you've seen today from NC State, do they have enough to really challenge that elite upper echelon?
Well, what I will tell you is it's hard to identify the elite upper echelon in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I think that every team out there has some question marks. At this point in the season, it at least appears to me that the most complete team is Louisville. But North Carolina State, they've got size. They clearly have guys who can shoot the ball. They've played pretty well defensively in the half court. So I think they have a chance that every night out to be competitive. And, you know, if the breaks go their way, they could have a really, really good season.
Childress has 25 and another NC State turnover. They have been horrible trying to salt this game away.
I'm telling you, sometimes when you disengage, it's very difficult to re-engage, and they may have taken their foot off the gas just a little too early. Now, what we have here is in the last 2 minutes of the game, when there's 2 players involved with the ball going out of bounds, the officials will go over and look and see who touched the ball last. The ruling on the court is that it was last touched by North Carolina State.
Take a look, and I think you see enough there to say that Johnson saw it off the fingers.
Well, the ball hadn't gone out of bounds yet. Still not out of bounds.
I think it's Johnson off the official and out of bounds.
Well, because the official is the first thing the ball hits out of bounds. So that means when it hits the official, the ball is out of bounds. And you are correct. It goes on the official off the hand of Johnson, and that's pretty clear.
So just to revisit your point about the flaws of the teams at the top, I'm with you, and I think most people would agree that Louisville clearly looks like the most complete team. They've got that balance of veterans and youth, and Williamson, the great, tremendous freshman. You have to think that Coach K and Duke, although they've turned it over again, all these new young faces, they'll get it going. Can UVA score enough? Can Carolina do the same? I mean, you're right. It is hard to figure at the top.
Well, the point is not that those teams, you know, Duke is obviously very, very good.
Of course.
And they're going to get better as the year goes on. North Carolina, even though they don't have the kind of wall-to-wall talent that they normally do, they still have very good players. They have guys who are at North Carolina, for heaven's sake. So they're going to be better. So I just think that though there's so many question marks, it's going to make this conference season really interesting. And a team like NC State, there may have been times last year, the year before, where you go into a game and it would be a really big upset if they win the game. I just don't think that's the case this year. I think they're going to be in every game they play.
Packer and Durham to follow us to set the scene for the ACC title game. It is Wake Forest basketball. I think that's exactly right. There will not be a night where you say to yourself, there's no way NC State can do this tonight. Does Childress have one more trick in the bag? It's White for three. No. Can they get the rebound? Childress comes away with it. 30 seconds to go. Childress! He's got 28, and Wake Forest is back within 5.
And the clock is stopped because we got Helms down. He got that rebound but lost his balance, and I think he landed right on his tailbone.
That would change a lot of what we're talking about. Such an important piece to them. Maybe his head falling to the floor. That is not real good.
Looks like he did hit his head.
We really hope that Helms, who is on an unbelievable run of production for NC State, is okay. He's a big part of what they're trying to do.
Well, you just have to tip your hat to Wake Forest here. They have not quit. They have forced turnovers. They've made some shots. I didn't think there was any possibility. And
they just keep hanging around.
I think he hit his head, but I think Sarr actually fell on top of him. It looked to me like Sarr fell with his forearm and maybe got him in the chest or the neck.
Yeah, they're holding their breath on the NC State sideline as Helms continues to be down. I think you're right. It's the combo of getting the wind knocked out with that big Frenchman on top and the head on the back of the floor, and they're taking all of the necessary precautions. He looks totally dazed at the moment on the floor. Concern looks understandably.
Well, I don't think that he lost consciousness. He seemed to be moving around the whole time, so it's not like he got knocked out. But you're right, he certainly is dazed.
And with all that we now know about the science of concussions, that these situations are handled with so much more care now. There's no sense in rushing anything, and they will take all of that caution here. The referees were at the monitor reviewing that situation, and they're going to talk to both coaches here. First to Danny Manning. And I think they're going to call Musius for a flagrant 1 foul after looking at the monitors, which of course changes the entire complexion of this thing just as Wake gets back within 5. Primary concern, of course, right now is with Helms.
Well, they did go over and review that, but I didn't see that.
Maybe we'll have to.
You know, we're sitting a long way away, so it's hard to see, but I wonder what the source of the. Now, keep in mind that a flagrant 1 foul is contact that is excessive or unnecessary.
I mean, from our angle, we didn't see. Maybe he was in that scuffle for the basketball, and maybe as Helms was going to the ground, maybe an elbow contacted Helms' head. It's just so hard to say. Now they're talking it over with the NC State bench, and they're going to bring the stretcher out here onto the floor, which you hate to see. It is a hushed.
Well, again, I think that's, at least I hope, that it's just being a matter of being cautious.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him moving. He's rolled over. He has, from our vantage point, you can see him speaking to the medical staff. But again, they are just going to be as cautious as possible here with Jericho Helms. Tense times in Winston-Salem, 5-point lead. We will be right back for the conclusion of this one. Well, a very difficult moment here in Winston-Salem. As you can see that Jericho Helms is being placed on the stretcher and taken off the floor here. He was involved in a real big collision, appeared to hit his head on the floor. The play again in which a flagrant one was called, but that sort of takes a backdrop to the well-being of this young man. And again, there's the collision with the floor on the back of his head. He's got two bodies on him as he collides with the floor.
Two big guys. That Saar, as we mentioned, is 255 pounds, came down right on top of him and hit his head. The flagrant foul, we understand, was off the play. The flagrant foul had nothing to do with that particular play right there.
Which, even though it seems somewhat trivial at the moment, is important to the context of this game. It was away from the play and away from the ball. As maybe that's a family member coming down to see how this young man, Jericho Helms, who's having the best stretch of his young career. And of course, this is every parent's nightmare. Again, we've seen him moving around on the floor. You and I are not doctors. We're not medical professionals. We know that more caution is taken, and all of this stuff is done as a precautionary measure. That does not make it any easier at the moment for everybody in this building.
Well, certainly not for the young man, certainly not for his parents.
Yeah, we will be talking to Packer and Durham eventually.
And again, he does, even as they immobilize him, we have seen movement from him. He has rolled over. He has moved his hands. His teammates look on with great concern.
Well, it sort of makes the whole outcome of the game seem very insignificant.
There's no question about that.
When there's just no sound in this building.
And everybody to their feet in this building as Helms is wheeled off. And again, more movement from his right hand and arm up on top of his forehead, which is always a good sign. This is serious. He is being taken off the floor. And of course now, Dan, as you rightly say, in the midst of a competitive athletic endeavor, now the well-being of that young man takes chief concern amongst all these kids. At the same time, you've got 28 seconds left to play, and it must be so difficult. It doesn't matter whether you're wearing a red jersey or a white one to re-engage in the game.
Yeah, but that's your job. That's what you're out there to do.
We'll elect to go to Braxton Beverly.
Well, now if it's a flagrant one foul, then the person who shoots the shots is the guy who was fouled
on the backside there.
Yeah. So obviously the flagrant foul was called on Isaiah Musius, and so clearly he did something that we didn't see, and we didn't see it even in the replay because we were focused on the other play. He clearly fouled Beverly.
You know, again, we understand that in the scope of the big scheme of life, this game has taken something of a backseat, but that's a big miss. It's still a two-possession game. See if Wade can get yet another turnover. They almost do, but Beverly holds it.
And you got to get the ball moving.
And now a foul as it'll be Bryce to the free throw line on the other end. Sarr's second foul.
And you certainly don't mind having Bryce at the free throw line. He's an 81% free throw shooter. Of course, Beverly was an 86% free throw shooter. So nothing guaranteed here. But boy, this game has suddenly stopped.
Bryce has not only shot free throws well, he's been a high volume man at the line. And he makes the first. He's got 17. That leads the Wolfpack here today. It's amazing, not just the drama around Helms and the injury, the delay there. The flagrant foul game comes in a possession when Childress hits a three to get Wake back within 5, and that one play reversed the course of this entire final 30 seconds.
Well, it certainly disrupted the momentum that Wake Forest was building.
Now, for all the talk of what Wake needed to do to hang in, to come back in this game, now trailing by 8 with the basketball. Danny Manning drawing up some offense. Kevin Keats in the NC State huddle says what to his guys to protect the 8-point lead?
Hang on to the basketball. And when I say that, I'm not just saying that and trying to be flippant, but in this situation, you know that Wake Forest is going to be coming at you hard. And so you don't want to wait for the referee to bail you out. You know, be really strong with the basketball. Just because somebody hits you across the arm, you can't drop the ball and expect to get a foul call, but you just have to be very tough with the basketball. The other thing you have to do is put some pressure on Wake Forest, and this is what they're doing, so they have to run some time off the clock before they score.
Under 20 in the game, 8-point deficit.
And at this point, you don't worry about the 2. All you got to really do is defend the 3.
They're happy to concede that bucket to Childress, who's now got 30. And the ball inbounded to Daniels. 6-point NC State lead. There are some folks across this country who have some interest in the margin of this victory. 4 was the line set by those who deal in such things. Johnson has fouled out of the ball game. So 6-point NC State lead at the moment, under 15 seconds to go.
Torrey Johnson from Wake Forest,
yes.
not Markel Johnson from North Carolina State.
Now in for the Deacons, number 4, Jacoby Neath.
Jacoby Neath replaces him on the floor as Daniels, the man in line to try to extend the lead.
He's a 70% free throw shooter.
Makes the first transfer from Utah.
And again, now if you're North Carolina State, you are trying to put some pressure on them without fouling to force them to take some time to get the ball up the court, and then you're defending the 3. You don't worry about a 2.
Daniels, light pressure. Price the same. 10 seconds. Corner 3 for White will not go. Funderburk with a rebound. He is fouled, and that should do it for NC State.
You can see the kind of impact that Childress has on the game in that play right there, because you know they're trying to defend the 3, and so in trying to defend the 3, everybody runs to Childress, and that allows him to find an open 3-point shooter.
Funderburk misses the free throw, but I think he's been very impressive tonight. He's made 5 of 11 field goals. He's got 10 points, 6 boards. He's got a presence in the paint.
He's had a very solid game. And again, he denies the chicken.
No chicken for you. 9-point lead, 3 seconds to go. Childress no, and NC State will win it 91-82. All told, Dan, NC State did what they came here to do.
Absolutely. It's a tough place for them to win, and they came in here and got one.
Well, for Dan Bonner and our entire ACC Network crew, I'm Will Fleming. Final score here in Winston-Salem, NC State 91, Wake Forest 82. We now send you to Charlotte for a special ACC Championship football edition of Packer and Durham. 91-82, so long from Winston-Salem.